All right, welcome back, everybody, to the fifth episode of Hacking Real Estate. I am your host, Brian McKee, and we have a super special guest on today who is been in the business for a few years, and I think here recently has really taken off. And so I had to bring him on because there's a particular personality trait of him that I think is going to be very beneficial. So, Josh Belcher, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you, Brian. Excited to be here.
All right, so we talked a couple of days ago. Is this your first podcast, like being on one?
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not a seasoned veteran.
So, well, good. I like it.
I hope this goes well.
It'll go super well. Don't worry about that. All right, I want to ask you, introduce yourself. Tell us a little about who you are. I know you started at Honors Real Estate, and then you kind of transitioned over to Keller Williams. So tell us a little quick story about your journey.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been in the business 4 years full time. Got a license actually 5 years ago, so in 2014. And my journey actually started at Teleco Realty in Lenore City, which was a short 1 year stint. But I was a director of stores for a retail company here in Knoxville. Worked corporate world for about 8.5 years, and kind of got to the point where that wasn't in line with what my visions and dreams were. So when I was traveling around the Southeast, I went online, got my real estate license that way, and came back. And then eventually it was time for the switch to go from the corporate world into real estate. And my license was already hung at Teleco Realty. So naturally I just kind of left one job, drove over there, sat down, and was like, all right, how does this work? How do we make this work? And just kind of dove right in the real estate world. So kind of a scary time going through that initial transition and leaving the secured job and salary and benefits and all that fun stuff. And kind of went without really knowing how the business works. Went over to Teleco Realty, and that's where it got started. Yeah.
So how did you transition to Honors and then to Keller Williams Signature now?
Sure. So at Teleco Realty, my first year, I ended up with a pretty unbelievable first year. We did just under $10 million that first year, which it was a pretty high level amount of sales. Certainly blew my mind that was even possible. But most of the deals, or let me say this, most of the leads and the business of Teleco Realty definitely serviced more of Teleco Village. The owner there, John Tuck, was he's rooted in Loudoun County. And so a lot of the business opportunities were definitely a little bit further west than Knoxville, which is where most of my connections were. So my license was there. I was driving to Lenore City, learning, how to do a transaction, everything, going through that. But most of the deals that I was coming across, most of my friends that I'm working with, most of the sphere that I was connecting with was all West Knoxville. And then I had my mom join me to work as an assistant, which is a funny story. But had her join as an assistant. She had a retired real estate license, and she had great connections in Maryville. And so most of our business was in Knox and Blount County. And so after a year, obviously an unbelievable year, we do almost $10 million in sales, and we're like, hey, it probably makes sense for us to align ourselves with something more local in the West Knoxville market. So we make the transition, shop around a little bit, make the transition, decide that Honors makes the most sense for some of the bigger picture things I was wanting to do, and ended up meeting with them. They were kind of a startup. They were a smaller firm, which my track record has always been work with the local family-owned small business. And the irony is I told Keller Williams multiple times, like, hey, I'm just not that interested in working for the big box guy, right? And so I said no quite a bit. But anyway, I was at Honors for a little less than 2 years. I don't think it was quite 2 years. But basically was there. I continued to have a high level of success, but was kind of hitting my ceiling and continuously doing that like $9 to $10 million range of business and not seeing growth, not seeing, that breakthrough. And so I started exploring a lot and looking at different options. And At the time, was really focused on being a single agent, competing to be the best realtor in Knoxville, right? We all have that dream. And for me, that was kind of the motivator. And at that same time that I was kind of saying, hey, I need a change, I was looking at hiring a coach to kind of get myself aligned with some better systems and processes. And at the same time, Jay Lewis from Keller Williams and then Lucas Hahn came to me and said, hey, we've got an opportunity we want to share with you. And they kind of pitched this new office they were opening. So again, like the startup, the smaller firm really appealed to me, right? But then it was backed by Keller Williams, which was kind of interesting. And of course, later on, I'd realized that the power of being in that bigger brand, how important that was, would really kind of catapult our level of success in the last year. But of course, at the time, I didn't know that or see that. So, so again, smaller office. This was exciting. There were a lot of bigger agents coming into that office. And so packaged with the idea of kind of aligning myself through Keller Williams systems and their processes, and the idea of being able to hire a coach in the house that I would meet with every week was better than calling somebody, one of these bigger name coaches and doing phone calls all the time. Right.
Yep.
So it kind of aligned itself. The timing was right. They were opening this cool office. It sounded very neat and exclusive, and it was an honor to be invited. So we went ahead and, made the move over to Keller Williams. And that first year, when we look back at our year-over-year results, the combination of better systems, processes, having a coach, and then having the powerful brand behind you, our business was up 90% year over year.
Wow.
In that first year. Yeah. It was remarkable. So there's a little history on where I've been and how I got started and, where we're at today.
It's a good thing. My story is a little bit different, but it kind of was similar with my last year. I went with a company that was, it wasn't local, but they were a small shop. I liked that. It appealed to me very well. Their systems that they, had mentioned appealed to me.
Right.
The delivery of that was not there. And I ended up moving to Movement, and kind of the same thing. I thought about doing a couple local places around here, and ended up just liking the culture, the systems, the name, all that kind of stuff. And it just made sense. And this year alone, I would have generated more business than I did literally the 2 years prior combined.
Right.
So
yeah, I think the similarities of your story and my story are kind of cool, where we were both in those smaller local places and kind of looking for that breakthrough, kind of looking for that bigger opportunity. And certainly in your world, right, Movement's kind of the big box. And Keller Williams is the big box, right? But along with that came tremendous support, great systems, incredible education, leadership, all of those things that really matter. And I think you're probably like me in the sense that at some point during that transition, you kind of like a switch came on, whatever you say that, right?
Yeah.
You flipped a switch, and all of a sudden, you just start to see things a little differently. Sorry, hold on one second. Okay. We've got some elderberry syrup in the office today.
Oh boy.
Yeah, there's a whole cooler of it. So if any of the listeners need some elderberry syrup, I know where to get it.
I'm gonna swing by the office as soon as we're done.
Sorry, awesome distraction.
So today's topic is definitely unique. One thing about this podcast is I don't want it to be that. Not speaking of box store stuff. There's a lot of podcasts out there that talk about lead generation and things like that. I'm trying to take it more back to the agent and specifically who do you need to be as a person, which is kind of cool that we're covering this idea in bold, in order to go out and do the activities. Now we'll cover topics about that, but I'd say the core of what this is who is the top real estate agent? Who are they as a person, and who are they needing to be in order to stay at that level? And one of the things that I find very unique and I respect about you is your authenticity not just in person, but in your marketing, social media, all that kind of stuff. Like there is no, you're this way online, and then when we meet you in person, you're kind of a different animal. You're very transparent about everything, and that I thought the topic was perfect, specifically for you. Um,
Thank you.
How specifically do you brand yourself at Keller Williams Signature, and why do you do it that way?
So as far as the branding goes, I mean, let me start by saying this. I think as an individual agent, it's a little bit different than where we're going, because our goal for 2020 is to have a new brand, launch a new team. We've got some really cool, exciting things. Up until this point, right, as a single agent, I see a lot of people, they get their own logos. They've got, they do all the digital graphics and stuff to support their brand, which I think looks great. I love it. I kind of wish I had that. But I knew that wasn't really my end goal, so I didn't want to spend a ton of time or money on that. Yeah. The branding of myself as a single agent goes back to your topic of being authentic, right? So one of the things I think when you look at whether it's Instagram, whether you get into Facebook, like social media stuff, there's a lot of people that will say like, oh, there's a ratio you need to hit, right? You got to have 3 posts of your kids for every 1 house you sell. And there's that systematic science behind, whatever, right? Doing it right, whatever that means. And I agree. I think that you can overload one versus the other. But what I've never tried to care too much about that. I've always tried to focus more on just like what's real, what it comes down to. What am I doing during the day? What's important to me? Most of our brand is family oriented. I think that's one core basis. The other one I think is experiential. Whether that's the experience of dining, right? So we love food, we love going out, having a good time. Whether it's experiences just in places to go, things to do, that sort of thing. Whether it's sporting events, whether it's going out biking, going to parks, whatever that is. I mean, there's so many different things, that we love to do around here. So it's capturing that. And then in support of others is probably the third piece of that, that I think you'd find in our brand, is that personally, I like to find success with other people, right? Or success through others. And so I think that collectively, like when we're all successful, we all win. And there's a piece of that that's kind of rolled back into some of the team stuff, team dynamics. But when we're talking about the branding and stuff, it's being supportive of each other, and that's other agents, that's other service providers like yourself, loan officers. It's not going out and saying, well, who's going to pay me to post this for you, right? Yeah. Even if I had 100,000 followers, like that's not going to be my agenda. And sure, maybe that's a bad business decision, right? Because maybe you can make more money that way. But it changes who you are, right? And to me, that's a piece of culture, is just being supportive of each other. So, yeah.
And I like that, actually. That's something that I found out. This business is very unique, because we only get paid commission, and so your hunger changes a little bit, because if you're not out there driving up business, you're not paying your bills. If you're not paying your bills, the stress level definitely goes through the roof. And a lot of times, and I experienced this last year, you become something that you're not, because you're more focused on the desperation,
right?
And you lose yourself somehow. And my wife is the one that kind of slapped me, and when I moved to Movement, and said, you need to be more authentic in your personality and what actually you show in social and stuff like that, because that's obviously where a lot of my interaction happens, and it needs to translate, which again is something I respect uh, very much about you, is there's no difference between who you are in person in real life and when we have a conversation versus one that you put out on social media. Last
Yeah.
year mine was completely separate. This
No,
year
that's like for us, it's all about having fun. And there's so much in this business, from transactions, from just the pitfalls of doing deals sometimes, right? That can be anxious. They can ruin your day. Things happen. You get frustrated. People become frustrated. But in the end, like you got to have fun. You got to enjoy it, right?
Mhm.
So we try to make the work side fun, but also like super focused on making sure the job is done and done right, and then when you step away from that, right, it's doing fun things in the personal side of life as well. But I think on a bigger scale, and I say this a lot to people that want to get into real estate, the key to success in my business as well as your business, right? My business is real estate, and people get into real estate because they watch HGTV. They love the idea of, I love looking online at homes. I love doing this, right? This is so much fun. I could do this for you. And then of course they're chasing money, right? So there's the financial element that's like, oh, well, I know so-and-so, they just made X amount of dollars by selling this house. There's you can do that on a low scale, and there's plenty of agents that are successful in the part-time sense, right?
Mhm.
And it depends on what your goals are, I think, financially, right? Does that work for you? But ultimately, when you peel it all back, whether it's your business or mine, it's not about homes. It's not about it's not about opening doors for people, right? It's a people business, right? And so you have to really, really, really love people. You need to enjoy working with people. You got to enjoy helping people consistently. And sometimes they're hard people to deal with, right? And you've got to understand them, where they come from. You've got to be able to, understand what motivates them, what drives them, all those things. And they all come together, and you're able to help them reach a successful deal, a transaction, help them sell, help them buy, that sort of thing. But those are the things that I think get overlooked or underappreciated, is the fact that in the end, it's not about the house, it's about the people. And the same goes back into your business too. I mean, it's not the mortgage, it's not the money, right? You've got to be able to enjoy working with people to do this, and do it for a long time, but also do it on a high level.
That, I think that's one thing that separates you from a lot of the competition or a lot of the other agents in this area, is you naturally just want to help people and be in that decision with them. You're not thinking about the money or the commission or anything like that. You were just kind of like in it with them, in their story, getting to know them on a very deep level. And that comes across very differently than it does. Again, I experienced this last year, when you're just begging to get the business because you need to put food on the table or pay your bills or something like that, versus something that has definitely changed in me this year is there was a piece of my personality very similar to yours that I realized I had gotten lost pretty hard in
Mm-hmm.
this business, and it was my natural ability to help people. And it hit me one day, and I literally started thinking about, like, me in high school, middle school, all the way through, like, my 16 years in the chef, business. And the one thing that seemed to translate over all of it is my willingness to just be there in support of others and to help them in their journey, especially when it was like the chef. Like, I never had that, oh, this person got hired, he may take over my job kind of personality. I was always like, hey, I want to train this person to be the best,
Right.
because it makes me force myself to level up, because I have to be better or the best in order to train somebody how to reach that level as well. And it was all about helping people. And so that, I think, has made a huge difference in my business. And I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it definitely is something that separates you from just another phone call.
Well, one of the things that's kind of important too. So one of the other rules on our guiding principles here is surrender the outcome, which kind of encompasses what you're talking about, right? So it's making decisions irregardless of what the outcome may be, and it can be hard, right? If you're in a position of call it desperation, right? You start to think about that immediate gratification, or that like in this scenario, right? It's like, no, I've got to get this deal closed. I need that paycheck. And sometimes you may compromise, right? Either values, you may compromise future business, you may compromise a number of things that don't serve anyone except yourself, right? And in the short term, make you feel good, but in the long term, it does nothing for you. And it's not going to build a foundation for success in the long run. It's not going to do anything productive for you beyond that one transaction. And, in our world, there's times where you have to advise that client that it may mean costing yourself a deal. It may mean, putting your own, obligations, or your own, sometimes your goals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of putting them aside and saying, hey, that this is the best case scenario for you, and allowing that to be the advice. And in the end, right, like clients are going to make the decision based on, the advice we give them. But if we decide to hold stuff back sometimes because it might align with ourselves better, I mean, people find stuff out. They're always going to find that stuff out. And so you have to remember that, right? So surrender the outcome. Wait, so hang on. I'm trying to remember something real quick. So we went down this road a minute ago talking about the YouTube video, right?
Yes.
Right. Was that being recorded or not? I forget.
No. We
Was that prior?
And I felt bad because I didn't realize you didn't know that. But yeah, no, we're recording as of now.
Right. But when we were talking about that TED Talk, because I want to share that with everyone, because that's So the idea of authenticity, it kind of came to me. I'm totally taking over the podcast. We're just jumping to what I want to talk about now. So anyway, so when I made that move to Signature, right, and I was telling you that I had someone come up to me. We were at a closing. He took me aside and he kind of said, hey, just love watching your success. Love seeing what you're doing. Super proud of you. Keep doing what you're doing and do it great. But remember, don't change who you are, right? Stay true to yourself. Stay completely who you are today, because I'm telling you that people love you. Like, they love your energy. They love your personality. They love all that stuff, right? And at the time I was like, wow, that's awesome. Thank you, right? I don't understand why you're saying this to me. But over the past year, I started to see why that kind of makes sense. And so then this goes into the YouTube video, the TED Talk, which about 6 months later, I'm scrolling through YouTube, kind of fall into the YouTube, rabbit hole, and come across this TED Talk that I thought was super interesting. And the title was called something along the lines of like, what great leaders do. No, sorry, I'm screwing this up.
I looked it up. It's actually great leaders do what drug addicts do.
Yes, that's what it is. All right, so Brian's got it. He's got the link, everyone. So if you're listening, he'll email that to you. It's creating more work for you. So anyway, so I'm watching this TED Talk, and it comes out, and it's basically this whole talk about how the activities of a drug addict through recovery, right? The 3 principles that allow someone to walk through addiction and kind of reestablish themselves. And this particular person has gone through and reached a high level of success managing, I think, hospitals in the Nashville area. The 3 principles are, number 1, be rigorously authentic, right? And so which again goes back to the whole purpose of the podcast today, being rigorously authentic. Number 2, and I don't have these in order, but surrender the outcome, which again goes back to what we just talked about. And the last one is do the uncomfortable work. And those 3 principles. So at the time, I'm looking at growing myself as a leader. My mindset is shifting, and I'm kind of looking at this and saying, hey, these are some things that as a leader of people on my own team going forward, these are principles that I want to kind of put into place because going back to what that one person said, which is like, just don't ever change you, right? And people have said that to me along the way, but it's just about, it's more than honesty, right? Honesty is expected, right? Like the truth is kind of the expected in the conversation, but I think the authenticity kind of comes down to that personality, which is like, don't shade away from the things you love, right? Be okay with what your passion is, and be comfortable in who you are. And we live in a world which is so it's shaded. We try to fit the mold. We try to do all these things. But I think that more and more today, people really respect the idea of authenticity. They find it refreshing. And I'll tell you a quick story is, when I started in real estate like 4 or 5 years ago, I remember saying like, well, this is it. Like, I got to go down to, Joseph A. Banks and get a couple suits cut, right? I got to get myself, really, really dolled up here. We got to look like a big time broker. And I said that every time I had a closing, right? Make a $4,000 check, make a $6,000 check. And I'm like, whoo, look at this money. Time to go down to, Coachman's and get myself a nice suit, right? I've never done that. Right? And yet I still continue to do business. And in your mind, you're saying, well, you got to look the part. You know what I mean? I mean, like Lucas Hahn's like 4 doors down from me over here. I mean, nobody dresses better than Lucas. And I come in and I'm wearing like blue jeans and a polo. Like, what's up, man? How's it going? I might go on the same listing appointment as him, but I'm not. I don't have. I'm not dolled up, right? But that's okay, because I'm going to shake their hand the same way. I'm going to respect them the same way. I don't care if, like, oh, nice to meet you. So what do you do? You're a plumber. Cool. That's awesome. It's like, oh, what do you do? You're an emergency room doctor. Like, oh, wow, that's awesome. Thank you for what you do. Here's what I do. And then I just start talking, right? It's kind of all the same, but it just comes back to just not trying to be something to impress someone else. And so maybe there's your deep dive on the authenticity.
No, I love that, because this truly is. This is why I'm like super honored that you're a part of this conversation. This is one of my favorite, hands down, topics. And when someone talks to me about social media or marketing in general, and I like I said, I find this out a little bit on the hard side, because I went down completely the wrong path, and had to kind of discover that on my own in order for me to leverage that. But when people get into any business, but sales especially, they lose themselves in trying to pretend to be somebody that they're not. They, same thing, like they always say, what do they say? You got to fake it till you make it, or you got to like look the part, because people kind of have that expectation of, you're a realtor, right? You're supposed to be making all this money and you're driving around in a 2006 Honda. And in my head, I'm like, so what?
Right.
Like, that is the part that I think that, I have a 2009 Hyundai Sonata, paid dirt cheap money for, but I'm just like, I don't,
But it doesn't matter as long as you get out and take care of people. Right. So if you allow the impression of your persona to create the relationship, it kind of puts you, well, I think it kind of, man, I was going somewhere good with that, but it kind of, I want to say it kind of creates a relationship that is always going to be very superficial if it happens, right? I guess that's kind of where I'm going. So if you allow your personality to reach out, right, and you're a genuine person, you care about people, it doesn't matter what the image is, right? Because the person you do connect with will be connected on a deeper level. And that relationship will certainly benefit you on a higher level in the long run,
Yeah, I think when you're trying to build a relationship, whether it's new or to nurture one, I think, to me, there's a correlation between being authentic and confidence. And when you're confident, you are that person. Like, this is who I am. This is what I believe. This is how I act. And to me, that's what authenticity is there's no like acceptance of something that I should be, or anything like that. Like you walk into a room like, this is who me.
Right.
And I think when it comes to the authenticity in your marketing, because I want to touch on this a little bit. I think where a lot of people, and back me up on this, I think that a lot of people lose business and growth, because this podcast is really about the people that are really trying to take it up there, take it to the next level, is there has to be an authenticity to your brand, to your values, and to how you approach not just your business, but every person that you come in contact with. Is that something that you agree with? Is that something that you personally practice? What are your thoughts?
I think, and again, I think that from the marketing perspective, for what we do, most of what we do is very individual right now. And so I think that this will resonate for me on a deeper level, like when we start pushing a brand through a team, right? So again, kind of looking back just in my own sense, I look for, from the brand standpoint, I want things to look aesthetically pleasing, right? So from just digital images is really what it comes down to. I think that sometimes you get lost. I don't want to say you get lost, but I think that people post stuff that they put out there and it starts to look noisy and cluttered. And so there's no reason to connect. So anytime I'm posting something, like I'm annoyingly particular about things that before they get posted, because like I'm talking like from the text standpoint, like does it even look right when it's posted?
Mm-hmm.
What emojis did I use, right, to kind of break it up, like to the images that are being posted, if we're putting any kind of like an overlay on it, right, like a sold sign or under contract or whatever it is, and doing so that like when you see it, if you're on Instagram and you're scrolling, right, it's something that if you scrolled past it, it's going to make you stop and go, what was that, right? So to me, that I'm critical in the sense that I want the brand to look aesthetically pleasing. And that's a hard thing because it's very like, how do I teach someone else to do that? We're all critical in our own ways. That's kind of like the artist mentality, I guess. And everyone kind of values their own art differently. So from the branding standpoint or the marketing standpoint, I mean, that's something that I feel like I've tried to do. And I've had a lot of people say like, man, your social media stuff's great. And they're like, who does it? And I'm like, I do. And I hate it because it's like 11:30 in bed. And I'm trying to go to sleep, but I'm like, man, let's get one more good looking post done, Yeah. And I'm 45 minutes where other people probably put 5 posts out and they're getting twice as much recognition for it. But I think for my part, when it comes to that marketing branding stuff, I do tend to be pretty particular in the aesthetic. So,
well, but in the end, that's a part of you. That's who you are. And so, yeah, you may be doing it different or anything like that. I think when you definitely get a team, you can at some point translate that over. Because I know some team leaders that, pay some other people to do it, but then they go back and like say, hey, we're going to edit this because it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
It's not me. So let's do this, this, and this, and then change it. But you didn't spend 45 minutes creating it or whatever. Not that I don't know if it takes that long, but
so this is the transition though, right? So like this is going to be fun to see, I think, and track. Hopefully it'll be fun. But like that's me talking about me for the last 3 years, right? But my idea of a team does not come back on me and controlling me, right? It's not me in control of those individual things. I want to put a team together that values the individual talents of people, right? So putting someone that like if we're going to talk about a social media person or a marketing person, I don't want to have to critique it all the time. So I want to have someone that can deliver on a high level and do that, without without me having to say, well, that's not me, right? I want them to be able to say, this is us, and be able to deliver that without me having to put in, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I think when I see the team and I kind of look at what we're trying to do, it's about valuing the individual talents of people and what they can bring to the table, and allowing them the best opportunity to be successful in the roles that they do. That's really, and it's a challenge, right? It's easy to sit here and say, but that's really kind of the focus, though, and that's the challenge and the beauty of putting together a great team is how can you find those individual people, put them in positions or put them into the different duties and jobs that they love to do and they're passionate about, and allow them to never put a cap on it, right? It's like, this is your job, but create a business out of it, right? So take that extra step, not me telling you these are the duties that need to be done, but you tell me this is the business I want to run, and how big can this business be? And us as a group grow to allow and accommodate that to happen.
All right. First off, I love that. I think a lot of very powerful CEOs would agree with you. Put the right people, the passionate people in that position. And it's that position itself will flourish. And in doing so, the team around it will do the same. So Josh, you don't know this yet, but we're going to circle back in about 5 or 6 months and bring you back on.
Yeah, great. All right.
You're welcome. I'm catching you off guard. But no, I want to bring you back on because I think with the team thing that you're talking about, like it'd be cool to see you on that journey and kind of see what that looks like in 6 months.
Absolutely.
All right. So for the listeners that have made it this far, what is the one thing that you truly believe should be taken away from this podcast today?
Whew.
Like if you had to give like a tagline, just boom, this is what it is.
Here's the thing. So we did this what do you call it, that panel last week, and I thought it was an amazing panel, super informative. There was some great content there. And one of the things I didn't get a chance to say, and part of me thinks it may not have been appropriate to say in the setting, but it's something that I think is a real challenge. So the question that we were asked is, what's something that as real estate agents we can all do in order to improve and help each other for next year? Okay, it was something like that, something along those lines. What I kind of think is the challenge is that as a real estate agent, and I've been there, right? I spent 3 years in this mindset, is that we're very prideful, right? And we think that we are the most important person in the room. We're the most important person in the deal. We're the only reason that people like to do business with us. And just kind of, start to finish, we're very prideful in the thought that goes into all of that. And what happened for me, I think, was again, about a year ago, I had this shift in my mindset where it's not about me, right? I'm not the most important person in the room. I'm not the most important person in the transaction. And I kind of shifted to the idea of how can I help others be successful? And finding that success through others was a key, I think, in taking that next step, like from a standpoint of maturity, from standpoint of business growth, from the standpoint of surrounding myself with people that I want to be around. It was another great one, because all of a sudden it, like, you shift and people that you may have held on a pedestal, or you may have said like, wow, like, this person's got it together, and they're like calling you to have lunch. And you're like, wait a minute, how did that happen? Right. But what happened is I didn't make myself important anymore. Right. And I allowed other people to be important. And I think when we value our clients, when we value our teammates, and meaning other agents, cooperative agents, and then when we value, especially like our if you have a team, but your employees, your team, right? And you value your family, you start to value these things, like your life falls into a different order immediately. And I think that's something that I think we could all benefit from, is changing some of the ways we view our time, and how we allocate that, what we create as priorities. Just that shift in mindset for me was a game changer. And I think I'd love to be able to see more of us, and especially, I mean, I shouldn't say young agents versus old agents. I want to see it in all of us, but especially the young agents that I think are coming into the business, that are hungry and they want to do it all. But once you hit that level of success, understand that like you're not the reason. Like there are other reasons, and respect those. Yeah. So anyway,
I love that actually. Like, yeah, for those that, because our screen flashes back and forth, for those that are actually watching the video, like I was super involved in what you just said, because I absolutely believe it. So I'm kind of glad you said it. All right, so we're going to wrap this up. And I'm going to ask you 5 questions. You do not know what these are coming. And
nice.
They're going to be kind of a rapid fire, okay? So I'm going to start doing this at the end of every one, just to kind of get to know you a little bit on a personal level. It's not too personal. But I want to ask you 5 questions.
Does that make it personal?
I mean, we can get super. So I'm a big foodie, in case anyone listening to this does not know that, right? All right, so rapid fire. What is your favorite type of food?
I love all food, man. I don't know.
Give me top 2.
How about this? Best condiment, maple syrup. Let's go.
All right, go. What if you had a last meal? What would it be?
Whatever they're serving, I'm fine.
Okay. Favorite adult beverage?
Jack and Coke.
Favorite guilty pleasure snack?
You know those are they called Buckeyes? Chocolate covered peanut butter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Load them up. Let's go. It's Christmas time. Bring them over.
All right. So this is super important for anyone listening, and it has nothing to do with food. But what is the book that you are currently reading?
All right.
Or
so I'm reading Grit. Do you know that book?
I do not know.
Okay, so it's a highly recommended book, and I'm just going to tell you, it's a stupid story. I'll tell you anyway. So I got Grit. I sat down. I started reading it. I got 30, 40 pages in, and the book sucks. I just hate it, and I want it. Like, I know I have to you got to read 100 pages before you're allowed to have an opinion about a book, and I can't do it. I'm at page whatever it is. And if I have to hear one more example of like what Grit is, like I was hoping to get something out of it, but like I get it. I know what Grit is. I don't need 45 stories, and we're on page 40. Like,
yeah. I've read books like that. You're promoting the title more than you're actually providing content.
Yes, and I'm hopeful that like chapter 3, there's actually something that's like, oh, that's
right,
what it is.
So right? When you make it to page 100, I expect a text and say no or yes. That's the only words I want to see. No.
I think it was on Saturday. I was reading the book, and my wife looks over at me. She goes, "What are you doing?" I said, "Reading a book." And she's like, "Oh." And I just took the book and I threw it, and I was like, "This book sucks. I'm done with it." I don't know.
All right, Josh. Well, man, I cannot thank you enough for hopping on for our 5th episode here. Like I said, it was an honor to have you. Shameless plug for yourself. Like, where can people find you? If you want to give your phone number out, that's up to you.
Yeah, you can call or text the hotline at 865-661-7175. Or you can check out the new website, which is knxhomes.com. And you can get on there. You can search for homes. You can learn about who we are. And you can certainly reach out. And, happy to talk to anyone about opportunities here at Keller Williams and what that means. And, of course, if you got listeners that are wanting to buy or sell and they don't have an agent, I would love the opportunity to talk with them. So, who knows where this podcast is going. I have a feeling it'll be in the top 100 eventually. So
Absolutely, man. I appreciate that, first off.
that's it. Everyone subscribe.
Everyone subscribe. So again, thanks for joining. I've been super excited about the launch of this thing, and like I said, the content is really a little bit more humbling and meaningful than just lead generation, because that's your number one job. I shouldn't have to tell you that. But again, thank you so much, brother, and I will see you soon. Talk to you very soon. All right.
Thanks for the opportunity. Appreciate it.
Not a problem. Thanks everyone for joining us.